One of the biggest mistakes most players make in eFootball is that they just copy someone else's individual instructions without even understanding when those instructions should actually be used. Like seriously, do you really know when to use tight marking or when you should use anchor or deep line? Because the truth is, different situations require different individual instructions. But many players just copy what others are using, and sometimes it completely destroys your gameplay. For example, your midfield might already be empty, but instead of solving that problem, you give your midfielder a defensive instructions, and now the midfield becomes even more exposed. So in this video, I'm going to show you when you should actually use each individual instructions depending on the situation. So if you are curious, make sure to watch this video till the end. First, let's understand the basic. In eFootball, there are two main types of instructions: attacking instructions and defensive instructions. Attacking instructions activate when your team has the ball, while defensive instructions activate when you lose the ball and start defending. In the attacking group, we have three instructions: defensive, attacking, and anchor. And in the defensive group, we have four: tight marking, man marking, counter target, and deep line. So in this video, I will explain each one of them and how to use them and when to use them. Now let's start with the attacking instructions. First, we have defensive. I will explain when to use it on defenders, midfielder, and strikers. Defensive instructions for fullback. You should use this when you are playing with attacking fullbacks or fullback finisher, because when they push forward too much, they sometimes take too long to come back. These instructions become really important when facing long ball counter-attacking players or when your opponent is using speedy wingers. Defensive instructions for attacking midfielders. When you give these instructions to an AMF or CMF, they will still help during build-up until the ball reaches the final third. But once the ball reaches your striker, the midfielder will drop back instead of moving forward. Personally, I don't use this one much because I like my midfielder pushing forward, but if you feel your midfielder leaving too much space behind, you can definitely try this one. Defensive instructions for a striker. You can also use this on wingers, but it's mostly used on strikers. Usually players activate this when they switch to full defensive mode. Basically when you are thinking, alright, no more attacking now, we are parking the bus. Your striker will stay forward, but they will stop making aggressive runs behind the defense. They will move slower and conserve positioning instead of constantly attacking. Now let's move on to attacking instructions. These instructions can only be used on defenders and midfielders. We will start with center backs. If you give attacking instructions to your center backs during build-up, he will move forward into midfield. This instructions is usually used on defenders who have good passing or long shooting ability. Players usually use this instruction in one situation: when they desperately need a goal. For example, it's the 88th minute and you are losing 1-0. At that point, if you concede another goal, it doesn't really matter. But if your center back helps in attack and you score the goal, the match becomes 1-1. So that risk can sometimes be worth it. Attacking instructions for DMF. This works similar to attacking instructions for center backs. You usually use it when chasing a goal or when you are already winning comfortably. But the risk here is much lower because when your DMF moves forward, your backline still stays intact. Your DMF will basically play like an extra attacking midfielder, positioning himself behind the striker. Attacking instructions for attacking midfielders. When you give attacking instructions to an AMF, they will move almost like a second striker. There are several reasons players use this in eFootball. First, extra presence inside the box during crosses. Second, it helps connect passes between the striker and the winger. And third, it helps collect rebound balls. This is especially useful when your opponent is playing park the bus and you are constantly taking shots or crossing. Your attacking midfielder will be ready to pick the loose balls and restart the attack once again. Then we have anchor instructions. These instructions can be used on defenders, midfielders, or even strikers. Let's start with DMF. When you apply anchor to a DMF, the player will only move forward and backward. They won't drift wide towards the wings. This is very useful in formation where the midfield often becomes empty, like 4-4-2. Sometimes during attack, your midfielder starts running everywhere, so when a counter attack happens, he is out of position. But with anchor instructions, he stays in the central zone, making it easier to defend counters. Anchor instructions for striker. Have you ever noticed your striker randomly running towards the wings instead of staying in the middle? Now if you want your strikers to stay central, anchor instructions solves that. Your striker will move straight up and down only, staying focused in the center. You can also use this to save your striker's stamina so he can play fresh till the end. Now let's move to defensive instructions. First we have tight marking. This is useful when the opponent has one extremely dangerous player. For example, players like Messi, Pele, or Gullit, who keep finding spaces. With tight marking, whichever defender is closest will constantly pressure that player, so every time he receives the ball, someone is immediately onto him. It also blocks his passing options, making it easier to intercept the ball. Next, we have man marking, and this one works a bit differently. With man marking, you pick one of your players players and assign him to one specific opponent. So instead of defenders taking turns like in tight marking, here one player is responsible for that opponent the whole 90 minutes. But there is a small downside because your player will keep following that opponent everywhere. He might leave his original position, which can mess up your defensive shape. So the best way to use this is actually on your attacking players. That way your defensive line stays intact and you can still shut down the opponent's dangerous player without ruining your defense line. Then we have counter target. These instructions can be used on any position, but it's mostly used on strikers or wingers. The main function is simple. The player won't participate in defense. Even if the ball is near him, he will mostly walk instead of pressing. But when you win the ball back, he will be ready for the counter attack. And there is one more benefit. If you use players with low stamina like Messi, Neymar or Haaland, counter target helps them stay fresh longer. And lastly, we have deep line. These instructions can be used on midfielders or attacker, but it's most commonly used on DMF. It is very useful when you are playing with attacking fullbacks who sometimes leave spaces behind. Instead of forcing your fullbacks to stay back, you can give deep line to your DMF. Your DMF will drop deeper and stand almost next to the center back. This helps in covering the space left by your attacking fullback. So I hope after watching this video you should understand when to use each individual instructions depending on the situation instead of just copying someone else's setup. Now if you still have some doubt, let me know in the comments and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.